Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Awards Watch Oscar podcast. I am your host, Eric Anderson, as usual. This is Oscar podcast number 76. We haven't done one in a couple of months, and this is a special one. We're going to be discussing the Golden Globes and SAG nominations coming next week, and my very, very special guest and first-time guest is Jenelle Riley, the Deputy Awards and Features Editor of Variety. Hello, Jenelle.
Hello, first time guest, first time listener. No,
I
that's not true. I've listened to a couple of these actually.
I'm excited to have you on. You are a person in the know and on the pulse. I love it. And we finally got to meet face to face the first time this year.
That's right. I
So
came to the lovely city of Mill Valley.
it was a good time. That was a fun
It was
festival.
beautiful, beautiful. I had no idea how many Oscar voters lived in that area.
San Francisco is the third largest block of Oscar voters in the world.
In a way that doesn't surprise me. And then I've met a lot of people from like Industrial Light and Magic and Lucasfilm who are,
Mhm.
they're Oscar winners and Oscar voters. So it kind of made sense.
It did, and there's lots of little mini studio warehouses and tons of movies and shows shoot up here. And yeah, it's almost like the biggest secret that people don't know.
Yes, exactly. I guess it's the West Coast equivalent of the Hamptons, because
Yeah,
weirdly the Hamptons have a lot of Oscar voters out there as well.
yeah. Well, sometimes if you can get those older, wealthy voters that have been sitting on dividends and stuff for a few decades, that's what'll do it. All right, like I said at the top, we're going to talk about Golden Globes and Screen Actors Guild. Those nominations are coming next week. The Globes are Monday and SAG is Wednesday. So that really means that there's no more sleep time. There's no more like
Yeah.
there's yeah, it's the train has left the station. You got to be on it.
And right after you introduced me as saying that, like, I know what's going on, I have to preface this by saying I have no idea what's going to happen this year. I don't know who Golden Globe voters are. I know it's like about 100 of them, and
Yeah.
they aren't Oscar voters, they aren't SAG voters. They're part of the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, which has long been a big question mark as to who these people are. So I'm really just going to go out on a limb with some of these crazy predictions.
Yeah, I think with the Globes, it's you can definitely do that. But you host SAG Q&As and you do have some ideas of kind of where people are going. I don't have as much in that as you do, but I did get to the SAG Q&A of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood when I was down in Los Angeles, and that had like 120 SAG non-com voters there,
Wow.
which is pretty impressive, and the entire cast was there, and then they really just brought it out. So
Yeah,
it's
that doesn't surprise me. I mean, I think that one's pretty much a lock in both Globes and SAG.
yes, absolutely. I think it definitely is. And speaking of Globes, since it's heading up the comedy musical category where other films have been moved or pushed out, it's almost like there's not much real competition for it in terms of being able to even win there. I can't see a lot that would displace that.
No, I think it's first of all, it's a little strange to me that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is classified as a comedy, but it's not as egregious as some of the past, quote unquote comedies they
Yeah.
put in there. Like it definitely has a sense of humor, but I think it's going to be pretty hard to defeat unless, of course, the great unknown in all of this is Cats.
There's
You laugh, but who
no.
knows?
I think it's getting in. I think it's getting in, and
You do.
I do. It's the last thing that they're going to see that can often, be a bellwether. They'll probably nominate the song, so they'll get Taylor Swift there. So I think it's getting in because they as much as the Hollywood Foreign Press has tried to reshape and improve their image as something a little with having a little more integrity than they used to, they still want the biggest, funnest, drunkest Hollywood party of the year. And in order to do that, you have to bring in the people that are going to make that happen.
And we know they saw it, right? It was from what I understand, not the final cut, but they did get a screening of Cats. And part of me thinks, and this is not just the Globes, you see a lot of critics groups do this too. They want to be able to say, we saw this movie.
Hmm.
So we're nominating it because none of you get to see it yet.
Exactly, and That's happened with like New York Film Critics did that a few years ago with American Hustle. It was the last film they saw, and I think they saw it the day before they voted. And
Yep.
there you
There's
go.
something to be said about being very fresh in the mind.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the Cats screening for the Globes is today or
Oh, you're
tomorrow.
kidding.
It's either
Oh,
today or
wow. That's
tomorrow.
really cutting it close.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because we've
I also wonder if, on the flip side, in the drama category, if that's going to help Richard Jewell.
I I think that it will. I have it low level in a lot of categories except for supporting actress, where I think Kathy Bates is probably the safest bet. Um, but yeah, it just showed up at National Board of Review
Hmm.
and AFI. So there is definitely something going on there. But I will preface that in saying that Clint Eastwood movies can do pretty well at this stage and then end up going virtually nowhere.
Well, and let's not forget, I mean, how far American Sniper went, and I think the Globes shut it out, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and well, that was one
So
of
it's
the
not like there's great love for Clint there.
no, that was an extremely late play, and it's the exception to the rule for Eastwood recently because his other films, like J. Edgar and The Mule wasn't an awards push, but that was just last year.
Yeah.
Sully, uh, they're not connecting in the way that they used to, but there still are some groups like NBR that are just they're gonna keep rolling with Clinton until he does.
Yes. And I know we don't agree on this, but I actually think it's his best movie in a long, long time.
I I really hate it.
I didn't want to out you that much, but I actually really liked it a lot, especially for the performances. And best actor in a drama is so crowded. But I would not be surprised to see Paul Walter Hauser get in there. The Globes also like to sort of say, "Hey, we've discovered this
Hmm.
new person."
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that, and I think Hauser is fantastic. And when he was cast, I was like, okay, there's a lot of potential here. When Billy Ray was the screenwriter, I was like, okay, how can this go wrong? But I mean, I think the idea of the film is great. I just didn't like the execution. I didn't like what they did with Jon Hamm and Olivia Wilde, who are real people whose characters were like seriously distorted and perverted for the story and didn't need to be because it's still a fascinating story.
Yeah,
But
well, Jon Hamm actually plays an amalgam of a couple people, doesn't he?
yes, but the majority that it pulls from in this case is a guy that had like a 100% success rating. Um, which is a fantastic idea, but they didn't really exploit that the reason that he was wrong is because he was always right. Instead, they just made him feel like, he was super villainous and like just out to get him. And I think that
See,
component would
I
have been great.
it's interesting because I actually thought they made a point of showing that he wasn't just a bully, he wasn't a jerk. He truly believed that Richard Jewell was guilty, and that's why he went after him so hard.
Yes, that's true. Right at I don't spoiler or whatever, but yeah, the thing that he says kind of near the end does say that. I then, maybe it was Ham's performance that didn't click with me the right way because I just felt that it was just too like villain, and Olivia Wilde
Hmm.
too. Oh my God.
It's funny. I have an unpopular opinion on the Olivia Wilde stuff, and that's a whole other podcast. But I didn't find it as problematic as a lot of people find it.
Wow, that's we spent a lot of time on Richard Jewell. That's significant actually. But no, I think it's good because it is a movie that we were like, is Clint going to get this by the end of the year? Of course he is. He's Clint Eastwood, and
Right.
how is it going to play, and how is Warner Brothers going to play the movie? Because they've had such a tough year, but then they had Joker, and but now we have Richard Jewell as a, I don't want to say a stealthy contender,
It
but
is a little
but it
stealthy
is.
though.
It is.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I think it's a player, but we don't know just how much of a player until we see Globe and SAG. And I'm actually not sure they got screeners out in time for SAG. I think they got screening links.
Yeah. Well,
But I have to tell you, there's a big difference between getting a screener in hand and being sent a link.
that's absolutely
Yeah.
absolutely true. Old school voters especially, the fewer steps they have to take to watch a movie, the better. But
I'm
that
guilty of it myself too.
I am too. I hate screening links, and when I get, requests, I'll tell them, I said I need an in-hand DVD or a really good app for Apple TV so that it's easier and convenient. Don't make me do all the work just to no. And I don't like watching stuff on a laptop anyway. That's crazy pants.
I actually do. I like watching on my iPad, but let me tell you, I spent longer than I spent watching a movie last night trying to do this two authentication factor. Like I had to download apps so I could authenticate the app I
Yes,
was trying to watch, and I spent hours. And I was like, no, 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 just send me a Vimeo link,
yeah,
maybe with a password,
there you
but
go.
other than that, just give me a DVD.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
I will
champagne
I will
problems for
say that
people.
Warner Brothers FYC app that they just introduced this year is spectacular.
Oh, really? I haven't seen it.
And then they have everything up. Richard Jewell is there. Just Mercy is
Oh,
there.
it
Everything
is.
is up to stream, and it's really easy.
Is Joker up?
Yeah, everything. Their whole slate.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
that's really good. I'm excited for next week because I think between these two big awards announcements or nominations announcements, we're going to see just how strong certain movies that are kind of question marks are going to be. Like, is there love for Joker beyond Joaquin Phoenix's performance? I think there's a good chance it gets a Golden Globe nom for Best Picture. I think
yeah.
Todd Phillips could get a director nomination. And every year there's that one strange SAG ensemble that you don't think is an ensemble nom, like Bohemian Rhapsody last
hmm
year. And this year, I think that could be Joker.
I know I've had discussions about this too, and follow them with folks on Twitter like you and Will Mavity. And I do think that the inclusion of Joker in the ensemble is one of those absolute possibilities. And what that does is do what Bohemian Rhapsodies did,
Hmm.
which is if you were confused or questioning before, you can stop now.
Exactly. I think people have been underestimated. I mean, it won the Golden Lion right out of the gate. Like, we should not have been sleeping on this as a potential best pick. And a lot of people haven't, I should say, by the way.
Yes, yeah. And I think when you combine that with the $1 billion, you have a recipe for something that is undeniable for the Academy to want to recognize as they
Oh,
continue to try and strive
yeah.
for, having any type of relevance to people that normally just don't care about the Oscars.
Did it make money? I hadn't heard. It's made
Exactly.
so much money that even I am surprised, honestly.
I am too. It's
And I thought it
single-handedly
was
going
like
to
a lot of
save
money.
Warner Brothers this year.
Yeah, yeah. But I
Goodness.
also like at the end of the day, and people think I'm crazy. Look, I think Joaquin Phoenix gets in
hmm
for Gold Globe,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah.
I think he has a very good shot at SAG. I'm not calling him a lock because he has not campaigned. And this is not a judgment on the performance. I think he's wonderful. People get so angry at me, but let's not pretend that the Oscars are ultimately about the performance.
hmm
There's so much more that goes into it. And in a year this crowded, when you have people who don't normally campaign, like Eddie Murphy and Adam Sandler, out there, it's like it's going to be hard.
Well, that's what's so really kind of wild about that category, whether it's the Globes or SAG or Oscars or anything, is that essentially the two front runners, Joaquin Phoenix and Adam Driver, are the two that hate press stuff the most.
But Adam Driver's been doing a lot,
He
and he's
has
been really good at it. Yeah.
he has been doing a lot. I just was with him the other night at the SF Film Awards doing the press line, and it was really really funny because he is he has the kind of bracing honesty that is a little unexpected on a press line,
Yes.
because if
Yeah.
somebody asks him a question that he doesn't think it's a good question, he will completely come back with that. Like, what are you talking about? That's how's that even a question? I don't have an answer to that. And he does it
Well,
and it just like that.
yeah,
And I love it. I think it's
I
great.
adore it. Yeah.
But then it's also super scary. It's like, oh my God, what am I gonna ask? But it's
But he's also so smart,
yes.
that he will give ultimately great answers. And he is what a lot of people, well, I think people sort of know by now, he's very funny.
He is really funny. And
He is very funny.
if you engage him on a level that he's at instead of just like a basic, what was your most challenging thing?
Yeah.
He will give you that in return.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I asked him a question about, singing Sondheim for Marriage Story. And, he gave like the expected answer. And then he just went on this fascinating kind of monologue about, repurposing, existing songs or things that are beloved to, make us, he said this so much better than I did, by the way, obviously. But like when he was done, I was just kind of sitting there with my jaw open.
Yeah, he's doing, some Q&As and he's doing some elements of campaigning that are necessary and I think it's I mean it's difficult for him, but I think he's doing what he needs to do.
Yeah, yeah, and that's why I think he's the only one out of all these people who is a lock for a nomination,
Oh, I
because
think
there's
he's winning, but
so.
yeah.
You think he's winning?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think he has a very good shot at it. I think if Joaquin Phoenix can get nominated, and he probably can, I think it might come down to those two. I think Antonio Banderas,
Mhm.
God, I want him nominated so badly. I just don't know. The person I'm curious to see if he gets through the Globes is Robert De Niro has kind of a fascinating history with the Golden Globes. I
Yeah.
don't know if this is well known, but I've been told that they haven't been happy with him since he received one of their honorary awards and kind of
Mhm.
like used the whole thing to do a stand-up bit.
Yeah.
And so I believe he was snubbed when he was nominated for Silver Linings Playbook. They didn't nominate him that year. And in a year this competitive for Best Actor in a Drama, I'll be very curious to see if this is true and if he gets left out.
Yeah, that's something I was really going over this morning when I posted my Golden Globe predictions because he was the one I kind of, and not just Globes, like everywhere. I kind of,
Sure.
I'm a little confused about what to do with him. I don't, he's the kind of actor that is so iconic that when you think about him, you're like, of course he's going to get in. But yeah, drill down a little bit more and you can see. And yes, you're right. He didn't get in for Silver Linings Playbook. I did ultimately add him today, but when I look at my list, which is Banderas, Driver, Phoenix, and Jonathan Pryce,
You went with Jonathan Pryce.
and that's a little on the cusp for me too. And he used to be like my former number one, like over the summer.
Well, that's just it. We don't know. Do voters like? I think it's a brilliant performance. I thought he could win at one point. Maybe he still could, but this next week, will he make SAG? Will he make Golden Globes? If
Yeah.
so, I think he's on his way to an Oscar nom. But I know he hasn't been able to campaign because he was doing a play in New York.
Yeah, he was at AFI, but that was about it. But this is a category that also has Christian Bale,
Yep, exactly. They love
Paul
him.
Walter Hauser, as we've mentioned, and the move of Adam Sandler from comedy into drama.
I think he gets in.
I am so torn.
I really think he gets in. And honestly, interesting because this is another movie that if it had gone under comedy, I would have said, yeah, okay, I think it's more drama, but not bad category fraud. In a way, like putting him in the drama category, I think is actually kind of a good move.
I think sometimes it can be. It is still tough, but I think you and I are pretty much in agreement that really we're just feel good about Phoenix and Driver, and kind of everyone else is looking at those three spots.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
There's just something about Sandler, and again, I have not spoken to Golden Globe voters. I don't know, but they like him. They nominated him for Punch Drunk Love. They like
mm-hmm,
it when comedians do drama.
mm-hmm.
He would be a huge draw to get at their ceremony, and he's very, very good. He just won National Board of Review. Like, I went from thinking, oh, it's such a bummer he's no shot at a nomination because he's so great, to thinking, oh, he might get in.
I think you're right, especially about the comedians doing drama because the Golden Globes have been or were, obviously in the 90s, like Jim Carrey's biggest supporter
Yeah.
of performances when he would go drama. Not so much the Oscars, but definitely the Globes. So I think you're on to something there about him that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, yeah. It's when they made the move, I was like, I kind of shrugged because everyone was like, "Oh no!" And I even made the joke when he moved out of comedy. I was like, "Can't wait to hear Eddie Murphy's acceptance speech," because I was like, "There goes his competition," which isn't even true because Taron Egerton is a genuine threat.
Oh yeah, I mean
Um,
even
yeah.
DiCaprio is. It's a
Oh yeah, of
great
course.
category.
By the way, I think that Leonardo DiCaprio in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a brilliant performance. It's some of the best work he's done, and that's saying a lot. I still don't know if he gets nominated for the Oscar. It is a crazy, crazy category.
I was messing around with the idea of a snub for him. So, I do, monthly official predictions, and then in between that, I do Front Runner Friday, which is kind of like, all right, if something happens in between official predictions and I want to switch it up a little bit, here's where I think it is in the moment. And for a couple, I dropped him out. And I
Yeah.
and I had to do it, put it in print and look at it and go, okay, how does this look? Does this make sense? Is it weird? Yes, it's weird, but I,
Is it though? Because he did win fairly recently. We know if he's nominated this year, he's probably not winning.
oh no, he's not winning.
Sometimes I feel it's like that Amy when they overlook Amy Adams for Arrival, it's like, let's not torture this poor woman. We know she's not going to win for this. Why keep like making her come out?
Oh, poor Amy Adams. That was still that's so tough.
Yeah, she'll be fine. I give her 5 years before she finally wins.
Yeah, I think she'll do all right.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm with you. I'm a little torn on DiCaprio as well because again, once you get past the Globes and go into SAG and Oscars, you're going from 10 spots to 5.
Hmm.
And the drama section of the Golden Globes could be the final 5, period.
It could be. I am perhaps naively holding out hope for Eddie Murphy to get in and Taron Egerton, but like Dolomite was one of my favorite movies of the year, and I just don't know if it's a serious player. I really really want it to be.
I wish that it was. I don't think that it is, and I have ideas that kind of prove that it isn't. And it's unfortunate. It's a strange year from last year to this year for Netflix
Hmm.
because obviously they only had one film that they were pushing, and it did really really well all year, and they could put all of their focus on it, and it got them in the door. And this year, the strategy is, spreading the wealth around, which I think is really smart. But at the same time, when you have like 6 projects, 6 films,
Yeah.
how do you accurately and honestly spread that out and do it in a way that is equitable? You can't. You have to have your number one, your number two, your number three.
I was really hoping Dolomite would get the SAG Ensemble nomination, and I still think it could because it's such a fantastic cast. And you have great discoveries like Davine Joy Randolph, and then kind of comebacks like Wesley Snipes. And my fear is that sort of the crazy rich Asian slots of like the fun comedy with a big cast, it might be pushed out now by Knives Out.
I'm glad you mentioned that because that is absolutely the movie that has, I think, been the real stealth contender that is showing itself right now.
Hmm. I mean,
It's,
Daniel Craig could win the Golden Globe for Best Comedy Actor too.
I mean, he's definitely going to get in, and he's
Yeah.
absolutely freaking hilarious. But it also got AFI and
Yeah.
NVR. It's a huge box office hit. It's going to check off so many boxes for SAG because it has newcomers and respected veterans. Uh, it's gonna check so many boxes for so many people in across the industry.
And it's a really good movie. It is a really clever script with like a genuinely great mystery at the core.
Yeah, absolutely. I I'm glad that it is doing as well as it is, and I think it's the thing that we can inject into the race now.
Yeah.
And that goes for Ana de Armas too,
Oh,
who's
she's wonderful, and the comedy category at Golden Globes for actress. It's really interesting because I think we have Aquafina getting in.
mhm.
I would not be surprised to see Constance Wu get in for Hustlers. They nominated her last year for Crazy Rich Asians, and I think she's even better in this movie.
Yes.
But then there's quite a few things like, do they nominate the women from Booksmart? Do they nominate Emma Thompson? Like, sort of who else is in there? These are movies, again, we'll see if there's as much Booksmart love as I hope there is when
I
these nominations come out next week.
I do have Beanie Feldstein getting in and Emma Thompson getting in. So I think I feel really good about both of those.
I do accept, once again, we come back to Cats with Francesca Hayward.
Yes.
Like, she's a new discovery. This is also, over in the actor category in best drama, like George Mackay for 1917. Some of these late releases
Hmm.
and new faces, we really don't know what to make of them.
And at the same time, we can look at Ana de Armas and Beanie Feldstein and Caitlin Dever from Booksmart and Francesca Howard, and then realize they could just nominate Meryl Streep in The Laundromat
It's so true.
because they would.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's actually two people in the comedy category I'm curious about. One is the star of Jojo Rabbit, Roman Griffith Davis.
Hmm.
He could get nominated. The other is, I believe he's going lead in comedy, is Will Smith for Aladdin.
Yes, that's correct.
Uh-huh. I could see it happening. By the way, I really liked Aladdin and I love Will Smith, so I would have no problem with that.
I could see Will Smith getting in before Rowan Griffin Davis.
Sure.
They're so bad with kid performers.
They really are.
It's
Yeah.
it's gross actually. I don't get it. We have
It's too
great
bad.
child
They
performances
did
every
nominate
year.
Elsie Fisher for 8th grade last year.
Yeah, 14, 15. Yeah, that was good and obviously a deserved nomination.
Yeah. Yeah. She was fantastic.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about SAG and that
Okay.
ensemble because we got into it a little bit with Dolomite and Once Upon a Time. But I think as we mentioned Knives Out, that is coming in for that nomination.
I think so. We have basically three movies I think everyone thinks are locks, which are The Irishman, um, Marriage Story, Once
Hmm.
Upon a Time in Hollywood. I'm actually not convinced about Marriage Story. I think it might be one of those weird things where like three or even four of the cast get nominated, and
Hmm.
then it misses the ensemble, like The Shape of Water, or I remember the year there were three nominations for Up in the Air, but it wasn't nominated for ensemble. It's almost like
Yeah.
it's weird, like the way they think, like they do sort of like to spread the wealth. But
Yeah,
those are the three that I think are pretty comfortable.
I think that's fair. I mean, I feel good about Marriage Story getting in, but for exactly that reason that there are always things that don't make as much sense. And when we look at some recent years and how many box office hits are a part of this, that obviously helps things like Joker, and Knives Out, and things that
Yeah,
have demonstrable, proven box office in a way that Netflix movies don't have.
yeah. And then I just how do you? It's so hard though because you have all these great ensembles. You have Little Women, you have Ford versus Ferrari,
Yeah,
you have Bombshell. I think that's a great ensemble.
I mean, Downton Abbey,
Downton Abbey, they
which
they gave it so many awards for ensemble when it was a TV show.
that TV show is a SAG powerhouse, and
Hmm.
you can't pretend that it's not there. Hustlers, I think, is
Oh yes.
a huge possibility here. Extremely diverse cast, small budget, huge hit. It makes a lot
Yep.
of sense.
And Jennifer Lopez is getting nominated for sure.
Yep,
So,
exactly.
people are aware of it. The two that I really want to see sneak into SAG Ensemble, and I know they're long shots, is obviously Parasite. Yeah, one of, and The Farewell.
Oh, me too. I
Yeah.
mean, those are like my in my top three films of the year. So it's on a, yeah, personally, I would love to see both of those get in. I think Aquafina's getting in. It would be great. And I think Farewell needs a little bit of a boost. It didn't do that well. I don't want to say it didn't fare well, um,
Ah,
but I just
it made
did.
AFI, which made me
But
very
it made
happy.
AFI, which was great, over something like Ford v Ferrari.
Yeah,
That's a big get.
yeah.
So there's potential there. I know a lot of people, and whether it's just online or whatever, are trying to inflate Avengers Endgame as like a Black Panther nomination, but I think they're missing out on many of the reasons Black Panther got in.
Yeah, I love Avengers Endgame, and actually, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Golden Globes throw Robert Downey Jr. a supporting actor
Wow.
nomination. Yeah, but also I have to say, Black Panther campaigned for that ensemble award.
Yes.
I don't know that cast members for Avengers Endgame are really getting out there.
Disney is doing a tremendous amount of FYC stuff for it in a way that they just didn't really used to before. So I don't know if this is, the 20th Century Fox element of the marketing team that's like, yeah, you have billions of dollars a year, but you know what? You could also get awards,
Yeah,
which is what we like to do. So I think
right.
the combination of the two is doing a whole lot to push something like Avengers Endgame into awards contention. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to pan out, but it's not like they don't have money to spend.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it did pan out, but I don't think it is, mainly because well, I mean, it's a competitive race, but also I'm seeing a lot of advertising. I'm not seeing people from the cast
Yes,
getting out there and glad handling.
yes, and if
I
it's
mean, if Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans were going around hosting events for Avengers Endgame, it
my
would be a whole
God,
different story.
I
Yeah.
I totally agree. I totally agree. It's and one of the great things about doing this award season stuff and predicting is often less so the actual prediction, and it's more after everything happens and then looking at the hows and the whys,
Yeah.
because you can point to, okay, this person's absolute thirstiness in their campaign is what got them there, and then you can look at this person's total lack of campaign as being their narrative, like Monique when she won.
Oh, yeah, but boy, that was just she was bulldozing. And by the way, she did do the Hollywood Reporter Actress Roundtable
Yes.
and some Q&A. She wasn't as like
No,
anti-campaigning as people think. No one ever truly is.
her yeah, I mean her big thing was like, if I'm out here doing stuff, pay me, and I love that. I
Yeah.
I thought it was fantastic. But and that's the thing. Sometimes the performance will just click, and it will be the campaign.
Hmm.
And then other times, you can have a person that's out at every single event and shaking everybody's hand and doing every single red carpet, and it's just not quite enough. The
Yeah.
balance between the two is one of those Venn diagrams that's like, if you could capture that little tiny microcosm in the middle, then you'd have it. And that's what everybody tries to do every year, but
Yeah.
it's an unknowable number. It's an unknowable thing.
And you can't deny people's pure affection for things. Like so many people tried to take down Bohemian Rhapsody and Green Book last year, and the truth of the matter was, voters genuinely loved both of them. They really did. They weren't manipulated into liking them. They weren't, they were aware of what people were saying, and they just doubled down and said, "Nope, we like it."
I just did an interview this morning with Fortune magazine on exactly that, and they wanted to talk about controversies, and if I thought that anything from this year, like Joker or Richard Jewell, was going to negatively impact their awards race. And yeah, I said, all you have to do is look at last year, which was a seismic shift and turn in how voters think, and how very clearly they don't want to be told how to vote and what to vote for at all. Period. And it was
Nope, they're getting their own thing.
but yeah, speaking to controversy, I don't think that any amount of hemming and hawing on the internet is going to make a real impact. It might have a few decades ago, but it wasn't the internet that did it. It was all internal. I don't think any of these uh, ideas of controversies are going to have any real impact because the controversies of old in the pre-internet days and in the days when that wasn't a big deal, they were all very kind of internalized conflicts and controversies.
Hmm.
So if there was something to be had, if there was a campaign to be squashed, it was happening internally. It wasn't happening because, you know, I said something mean about Rami Malek.
Who could say anything mean about Rami Malek?
Well,
As
I
much
mean,
as, people might not have liked Bohemian Rhapsody, you can't blame that guy.
well, no, no, and I'm just,
Yeah.
saying that to be funny, but yeah, he's a perfect example of a person who went to everything, did everything, wanted it really badly, and worked for it.
Yeah, and everyone wants it. Like, let's stop pretending. You used a word earlier that I cringe at a little bit, but I understand why people use it. Thirsty.
Hmm.
Like, they're actors. Of course, they're thirsty. Like, I almost prefer it when rather than play it cool,
Yes.
that they're out there really selling something they believe in. I actually respect that.
Oh no, I absolutely respect the honesty of that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I use thirsty both as a warm and as a bit of a pejorative too.
Yeah.
Um, but it's also because voters like that. Voters like it when you want the thing that they want to give you.
I mean, and why not? Like, you don't want to give it to somebody who is like, I don't really care. I absolutely get that. And something that I really think one of these years I'm just going to get tattooed like on my forehead is critics are not voters. And I would
Yes.
apply that to Twitter
Hmm.
uh, Oscar prognosticators too. Like, no
Yes.
matter how much, I mean, I think that they can help push somebody into a race. Although, Ethan Hawke might disagree after last year. But
Hmm.
at the end of the day, like, we can, objectively say something is good, but that doesn't mean voters have to listen to us.
Absolutely. And as a person who does this for a living, if I don't believe that, then how big does my ego have to be?
Yeah.
That would be crazy. I love talking about it with colleagues and peers and in that realm, but I don't pretend to have that kind of impact.
No,
Unless
no.
you are having a direct conversation with a voter that is a real conversation about
Yeah.
I liked this and this is why. I didn't and this is why. Because I can sit and have conversations with people on my podcasts like this where I'm thinking one thing and through the conversation I see and hear things differently
Hmm.
and I might have a different opinion by the end of it, or at least a more enlightened one than I came in with.
Yeah. It's interesting too because like the voting body of the Academy has changed so much just in the last 3 years. When people say like, "Well, I know Oscar voters think dot dot dot," I'm like, we don't really know what they think. We used to be able to predict them a little better. It's a
Hmm.
totally different group. Same with SAG. They merged with AFTRA. They
Hmm.
like tripled their voting numbers. Like, it's a lot harder to predict. And sometimes, like, we talked about the Mill Valley Film Festival. I was there with Robert Pattinson for The Lighthouse, and this is a movie that I really like, and has gotten rave reviews. But I'm like, there's going to be a lot of people. This is going to be divisive. Like, a lot of people aren't going to like this. And I have to tell you, there were so many voters I spoke to that night. Nobody told me that they had a problem with it. Everybody loved it. And I was like, I really don't know what voters think anymore.
Exactly, because when I was watching it as well that night, I'm like, the people are going to turn this screener off in the first 5 minutes.
Right.
They're not even going to make it past that huge horn. They're they're not going to watch this. But then yes, that's you putting on this kind of
Yep.
here's what I think that you think. But no,
I have only met one person and all the people I've talked to, and they're not a voter, by the way, who didn't like Lighthouse.
it's it's really wild because it is a movie that seems like it should be extremely difficult to watch.
Hmm.
That it's what it's black and white, the aspect ratio, the the fact that it's just two people, that everything is extreme and loud and weird. It has all of these things about it that seem like This is not a crowd pleaser. It's not something that's going to hit a lot of quadrants.
Yeah.
But yeah, but the
People
response to it's
really like
great.
it though. And I would not be surprised if Willem Dafoe ends up winning Best Supporting Actor.
I don't know about winning, but I do think that he's getting in and he'll get his third in a row. And they need to give him one for robbing him for
Yes.
Florida Project because that was to my grave is going to be just one of the worst Oscar decisions ever.
Oh, I can't get behind that. I love Sam Rockwell.
He's okay. He's fine. But
Said no one ever.
uh,
Sam Rockwell's brilliant. Come on.
he's fine. He's fine. That
It's fine.
that was actually a really great year to talk about. I mean, I just mentioned that last year was the year that was kind of changed everything, but really it was the year before because we had Laurie Metcalf and Willem Dafoe win absolutely everything, and
Well, critics,
until we got
yep.
to the
The
televised and the
actual
industry
voters.
awards, and it
Yep.
absolutely flipped on them,
Yep.
and that was dramatic.
I never had any doubt at the end of the day it was going to be Sam Rockwell and Allison Janney. I was like, as much as I love Laurie Metcalf and the performances by Willem Dafoe, like I was like, these are critics. Everyone I'm hearing from. Also Allison Janney's role was so showy and delightful, and I really loved I, Tonya.
Oh, I did too, and Janny
Yeah,
made the most of her 13 minutes more than I think anybody possibly could. And
yeah.
also, Janny was a person that went to
Mm-hmm.
uh, every single thing, and campaigned like crazy. Metcalf did not. She was also in a play at the time, and it was really difficult for her, but it's not her thing anyway to
Yeah, although
campaign.
she did do a lot more than I expected.
She did a bit,
Yeah.
which again was one of those like, like Adam Driver or Joaquin Phoenix where it's like I'm being forced to do this by my management and my publicist and I don't want to, but I'm gonna do it anyway, versus somebody like Janny who loves it
Yeah.
and is extremely personable and everybody loves her and she gives back everything that people give to her. And it just when you have a combination like that, it's a winning combination.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, and also everyone just loves Allison Janney. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, Emmys, SAG, whatever it is, she is loved. All right. What else are we going to look at? What else can we look at?
Um,
Let's talk a little bit about The Irishman actually
sure.
because it did just win NBR and New York,
Yes.
which is kind of interesting. It's not surprising,
No.
but we're in a season that does not have really a front runner.
Mm.
And does this make it a de facto front runner now?
Irishman? Well, no, because again, I'm gonna go with the critics don't really matter at the end of the day. I think
Hmm.
it's definitely up there. I think there's about 5 movies right now that could take it. And I would say, there's Irishman. There's what did I just blank on? Like okay. So the three I think that are like really at the top are Irishman, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Parasite. And that's a whole other conversation. I know people think I'm crazy to be all in on Parasite, but then there's, a couple, I think Marriage Story has a really good shot. I really, for a long time, thought Two Popes could take it. I'm
Yeah,
not. I'm not. I think we're both a little disappointed that it's not getting the overwhelming love we had hoped for.
I think that it will. I'm
Do you? It's
yes,
such a short season.
like it is a short season,
Yeah.
but we are really just at the beginning of it. But I do think it will do well. I think it. I mean, it's Netflix's number three,
Yeah.
and they are doing really well with it. But
It's
it's
such a
in my
good
like
movie.
lower half of predictions.
Do you have Jojo Rabbit or 1917 as a potential winner?
For
A Best Picture.
I can tell you what my ranking is exactly right now.
Okay.
I have Marriage Story winning.
Really?
Then number two, Parasite. Number three, Irishman. Number four, Once Upon a Time. Number five, 1917. Number six, Jojo Rabbit. Number seven, The Farewell. Number eight, The Two Popes. Number nine, Joker. And number 10, Ford versus Ferrari.
Our rankings are very similar then. I'm very curious to see what happens when Bombshell opens, if that can, get into
I
the race.
I think that this is now going to be a Charlize and makeup only.
Really, not even
Hmm.
Margot Robbie.
All right, yeah, maybe Margot Robbie, unless, she ends up canceling herself out. But there was a time when I was looking at Golden Globe predictions that she could get two.
Yes, I actually think that Scarlett Johansson could get two.
No, I mean two in the same category.
Do they do that?
Yeah, they don't have any
Okay.
they've done that to like Leo DiCaprio. They
Yeah,
don't have
no,
any rules about that.
I could absolutely see that happening, honestly. And but now I'm starting to feel like she has a better shot for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
It's interesting. It's kind of like a Jessica Chastain year for her,
Yeah.
where I think she'll get in for one, but obviously the other film is going to help her greatly.
Yeah,
Although
definitely.
although strangely enough, the one that I think she's less likely to get in is the box office hit.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess we'll have to see how Bombshell does at the box office.
It's I mean, Bombshell is another film that I think is going to be, I don't want to say problematic, but it could be, uh, in how an extremely complicated movie of how
Hmm.
how you feel about it and how you feel about the women. So I'm really curious to see what the response is going to be too. But
Yeah,
because
I'm very
the
curious to see the
performances are
response.
good.
They're really good. Um, what's the other movie? There's one other movie I wanted to bring up. Oh, you don't have Little Women in your top 10.
I've had it in and out of the top 10 for so long, and
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with it. It's right underneath with Hustlers and Knives Out and Richard Jewell. Part of the issue is that I do look at trends and December releases, especially Christmas releases. There's usually only one or two that can actually make the cut,
Hmm.
and in a short year, I it's not going to be a whole bunch of them. And also, too, how many films have had a festival release versus haven't? 1917 hasn't. Uh, Little Women hasn't. Bombshell.
Nope.
So these are all movies that are vying for a spot, but it's most likely only one that's going to get in.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I really like Little Women. It's been adapted before, obviously. I thought its best shots were probably Florence Pugh and Saoirse Ronan, but now I'm not even sure about that because those categories are getting more and more competitive.
Hmm.
So it's another wait and see. It's like, if people really embrace it, like that'll be great.
Yeah, and that's the thing that the Globes and the Screen Actors Guild nominations are going to give us, and that is an idea of potential momentum. Obviously, only one of them is industry, but combined together, that's powerful, especially over the Christmas and New Year's holiday, because
Yeah.
people are going to be looking at the performances and the films that are nominated and go, okay, well, here's what I probably have to focus on.
Uh, I am actually excited about the next week so that we do get like some sort of clarity. The one thing, the if I could just put all my chips onto one thing, and I know once again I'll say like I know I don't influence anyone, et cetera, et cetera.
Hmm.
The person that I would be happiest to see nominated for Golden Globe and SAG is Zhao Shuzhen, the grandmother from The Farewell.
Yes,
That would make my esteem of these voting groups rise so much.
I you and I are completely on the same page there. That is my number one hope for a prediction across everything is that.
She's so wonderful, and she is. She finally came out to America for the first time ever a few weeks ago
Hmm.
to do a little campaigning, and she was a delight. And I love the film. I have high hopes for Lulu Wang and Aquafina in their respective categories,
I do
but
too.
I just please watch this movie if you haven't already.
I do have her getting into the Globes. I think it's absolutely a possibility. I think she campaigned exactly at the right time. She
Hmm.
has multiple profiles that were done of her, which is exactly the way to really kind of introduce her. I think it is a subtle but perfect campaign for her.
Just yeah, she's wonderful and delightful, and yeah, let's get her back out here in January, people. Come on.
Exactly, exactly. Well, I think that's a perfect place to end.
Okay,
Perfect place because we both just kind of got to uh, push for our favorite and our hope. And yeah, I think that's a good place.
good because there is a Two Popes pizza truck here right now giving out Fantas,
What the heck?
which is hilarious if you've seen the movie.
Exactly hilarious if you've seen it. I think I need to get a plane down there like super quick. Janelle, thank you so much for joining me.
Of course, thanks for having me, and tell me the next time you're in town so I don't randomly run into you at a party.
Exactly. I think I'm going to try and come down during Oscar nomination voting, but we'll see. We'll
All right.
see. All right. Thanks everybody for listening. Thank you, Janelle, again.
Thank you.
All right.
All
Bye-bye.
right.